Friends, it's time for the first garden tour officially of the season. There's already things blooming, there's already things starting to look really good, and there's a lot yet that's coming on, so I think it's a perfect time to start so we can see a progression over the season with different garden tours and see how things are looking, what they're gonna turn into, and really what the whole landscape is changing into. We're starting this tour just in kind of early evening, but I think that's a great time when the sun kind of highlights certain things. It's a little before golden hour. But what I want to show is the entryway. So I have matching kind of beds on either side. I have a big agave. They're slightly different sizes this year, but I wanted these two up here. And just to make sure this one doesn't move in wind or any kind of weather, I have a little teepee with some bamboo in it. And it's succulents and of course lemon coral sedum underneath. But right now you can see what is really starting to bloom is that cat's pajamas nepeta, which I'm pretty excited about. And the Skyland Spruce right behind it is really highlighted with all of its new growth. Evergreens like Skyland Spruce behind me, they're a little bit slower growing for me, but these are now in their 5th year, I think. And they're really starting to show some signs of growth, which I like. I'm starting to notice the size they've put on, but I love the early spring growth when that bright chartreuse color. Soon enough, we're gonna have lots of Globemaster allium, Schubertii allium blooming, which are the spring blooming allium. And then later in the summer, I'll have the Millennium allium blooming. But right now, the cat's pajamas are kind of taking center stage. It's early enough in the season that these Lindsay Skyward bald cypress are just starting to push out some growth, but they're not. You see those little, I love the bald cypress. They're kind of a fun mix up here. They look like an evergreen, but they're more a deciduous tree, which is really fun. But as we go from there, I just put this red point maple in 2 years ago, and it's starting to really get some size, which I like. And then in front here, you can see we're starting to get some of the growth happening from all the Helen von Stein, also called big ear stockies. So these stockies are a lamb's ear that are growing usually more for their texture, which is what I want. I wanted to use them more as a ground cover. I like how they really just fill in my front with that silvery, kind of beautiful green muted color that shows off so much during the summer. And they love the hot, dry sun. They do not like wet feet, so they do really well here, especially when we have dry weather. I just turned the fountain on recently, so this horse trough, antique cast iron horse trough turned fountain that I made on a video actually last year is in its 2nd year, and it's looking pretty good. The front walkway in general, so this is where everyone comes into the house, right by that fountain, but it's also where my kitchen window is, and that's where I look out on all the time. And so I see all this growth happening. The boxwood behind here have really started to fill in, and I want them to eventually just grow into each other. I'm thinking of someday possibly clouding them, which means letting them kind of have undulating form and shape and grow into each other. Right now, they're still somewhat distinct, but pretty soon they're gonna really be kind of getting in mass, which I really love. And again, there's some spring blooming allium. I just brought out the mom agave that I talk about. I named her Veronica quite a few years ago when I got her from a friend. She had a little bit of damage last year from frost because I was gone in October and she was sitting out. And so she got a little bit, so I had to cut off a little bit more from her, but she's looking really good. You can see up here some of her damage. That's how they show some of that frost damage. And I trimmed off quite a few. I'm not worried because over the summer, it always puts on so much growth, and I know it will open up into much bigger fronds, and it will really look healed in no time with the heat that's coming. I did put in some burro's tail that I had saved all around, some of that beautiful carex too, so it has that chartreuse color that plays really well with the chartreuse down below in the Sun King Aurelia. All the hellebore or Linton rose right here are just about done. There's a few blooms right in here, and I think I can pop one of these up. They're still looking really good, but they're starting to fade. So those are now going away, but now the Sun King Aurelia and the allium behind are really gonna take center stage. And so that's the fun part. There's different layers here and different textures that kind of take on. This ornamental tree right here is a 7 sunflower, which I love. They bloom really late in the season. It's more of a dappled, it's not gonna get a huge kind of shade tree here. That's why I have it by the front door. It offers a little bit of privacy as it keeps growing. It's a multi-stem. You can see there's some hellebore under it too, but it really is gonna have kind of this nice anchoring effect right here. We're gonna make our way around the front porch, which I'll do a separate front porch tour sometime. I recently did one where I was showing a lot of the plants that I put in there, and I put a big succulent planter together, if you remember, that's right there, on a different video. But all along the front porch has kind of been my my school or my classroom on texture that I've really started to enjoy with the plantings I've done. So in front, this is usually full sun all day, but late in the evening, we start to get shade from the maple that's right here. But this is all some old winter green boxwood. You can't really find that variety anymore. It's a smaller leaf, kind of a lighter color. I have a lot of the Helen von Stein stockies in front, but behind it, there's Russian sage that you can see is pretty small, but that takes over later in the summer. Right now we have the Mount Everest allium and those foxtail lilies. Now I notice, I love these foxtail lilies, by the way. They get these big, huge, beautiful blooms. For some reason though, I'm noticing a couple of them this year did not set a bloom. There's a plant back there, no bloom. And so I'm gonna have to probably go in, maybe fertilize them this year, also maybe add a few more in, because I think they really just play off well, all the different whites, but also the architectural structure they add back there to me is absolutely gorgeous. Now, I don't ever like, the cement showing from my porch. So that's why I like to kind of have this growing up in front of it. And what's nice is allium don't always look the most beautiful once that bloom is going. The bloom takes so much energy that the plant really starts dying back. So do you see how the leaves are starting to turn brown? I like to hide allium usually within beds where when that starts happening, you don't see it. So it's behind these boxwood that I usually slightly shape up. The oldest boxwood here are actually now over 30 years old. So these two right here, my grandparents put in when they lived here. All the others I added, but I keep them around that same size. So most of the others that I've put in now, they're starting to get to that size, which is pretty exciting. And it really shows the growth they're putting on. I'm someone that doesn't always have a lot of patience. When I moved into this house I bought it in 2010 from my grandparents. My grandma had landscaping around the front with a chipped terracotta kind of stone. And I took everything out other than these two boxwood. And then the back didn't really have any landscaping other than a vegetable garden that I moved. So everything you see has been now put in since 2010, a lot of it more around 2015. So a lot of this is showing now finally some growth of being in the ground, some of it 10 years, some of it less, but it's really starting to finally kind of show off that size. Right here on the corner, I have a troll ginkgo. So it's a smaller ginkgo shrub variety instead of a tree. And I love it because it has that fun texture here and it gets that beautiful yellow color in the fall. And then I do have just a Japanese maple over there. I think it was just a bloodgood variety. So it could get pretty large, but we have cold enough winters, it keeps it a little bit smaller, but it is doing well. But if we go just beyond, you can kind of see right now, we're getting into my favorite time of day with that sun starting to set. But this is one of my favorite areas this time of day because the shade just really has a different play here. So you are going to notice that my old soft maple or silver maple tree, that's the huge tree right here, it is dropping all of its spinners right now. So I could have blown off the sidewalk, and I will tomorrow here, this gravel pathway. But I just wanted you to see this is what they do. This is why we don't usually plant silver maples. Obviously this one was here from way before my time or my grandparents' time. They didn't plant it either. But you can see what it does in the spring. And this is an excessive year, but there's lots and lots of those spinners coming off. So this is my one shade garden. And I've really been enjoying being able to play a little bit with some hosta. I do have to supplement with water, as you see, especially on a year that's extra dry because it's under a maple, under an old crabapple. So if we have an extra dry time, hosta do show signs of stress. I have a few Sun King Aurelia in here too. They do well, I find, in slightly dry conditions. It just depends, on the year and how dry. And then there are some hellebore in here, which they're slow to establish. You can see here's one I planted last year. It's pretty small still. But once they're established, they do pretty well in dry conditions. Now, I don't have a greenhouse. I have what I call a plant room. And sometimes it's so full that it doesn't have the most optimal space or conditions for every plant. So you notice that some of my containers don't look really beautiful yet. This is being filmed in the first week of May, and I know it will go up a little later. But I want to show you that not all my containers always look ready for everything right away. So like this one right here, I showed when I was planting it. It has a big, beautiful coffee cups elephant ear that I save year to year in it. But honestly, this year right now, it's going to take it a little bit to establish. And the annuals around it look just fine. They're going to look beautiful, but it's going to take a while for it to really feel full, and that's okay. I do that with a lot of my plants. It takes time for them to fill in. A few years ago, as we continue on the path, I started putting in these Royal Prince oaks. Some of them now are probably about 8 years old, and you can see they have some good size. Some newer ones are a little smaller, but what they're gonna do is offer a secondary screen along with the Techni arborvitae that goes all along the front of the property against the road. So there's gonna be kind of a second screen as these get even larger. They're gonna almost wanna touch, even though they're an upright tree. And I want that. That's gonna be a secondary screen to really feel like this backyard is a little bit more of an intimate area. So this is a little bench I crafted out of some old limestone cornerstones kind of from a brick building. And then a lot of different agave that I keep in pots that I just kind of bring out and set there. They're full sun. I don't water them unless it rains, and they do really well with that. This whole bed, when I planted it 2 years ago, if you remember, is full of Caradonna salvia, some baptisia, some penstemon. It had daffodils, and you can see those are gonna go away, but then lots of Terra variety prairie drop seed grass. Terra variety is a little bit smaller and more compact for prairie drop seed. What I like about it is some prairie drop seed varieties, they get tall and they kind of flop over. This one stays nice and upright, which I really like. This pathway is finally becoming an area that is starting to feel, the perennials established so quickly. So already some of these are going on their third year and they're full grown by the time, late May into June hits. And that's what I really love. They're feeling established and they're feeling like this has been here for a while. And that's what I wanted. I wanted this to all feel like it's been here. There's Agastache, there's Rudbeckia, Goldstern variety. There's lots of baptisia in different colors, which is really fun, not just false indigo, which I do love. So this whole area is starting to feel like it's been here and like it's just part of the property, which to me takes time for a garden, but it's also exciting when you start feeling like this has been here and it has a story to tell. As I came around this corner, you can remember that cornerstone, it's a big old millstone that I had set into the corner. But I planted a new tree here this year. I moved the weeping purple beech that was here and I planted this northwind maple. I have 2 of these actually on my property. The wind was a little hard on it a few days ago. We have some really strong winds sometimes, so it really kind of riddled some of the leaves. But other than that, it's already setting new buds. It's super healthy. What I'm excited is this is a cross. It's not just a Japanese maple, it's a cross with a Korean variety that makes it very, very hardy, down to zone 4. So out here in the elements where you can see, we can get lots of exposure on both sides because you can see it's just big, wide open during the summer and during the winter. These varieties, and I know some people that have them locally and they do really well. This is always where I put my willow furniture, and I do sometimes bring a cup of coffee out here in the morning. And just as I usually end up weeding, but I will set it on the table and sometimes sit there for a little bit. I just think it's nice to have different areas to sit around a garden. And so all behind me on this path, you can see it's starting to really fill in. It's early spring, but eventually here, within a few weeks, you will not see any soil or any mulch. It is all gonna be plants, and that's exactly how I designed this bed. It's all perennials that die back to the ground. They get chopped up, mulched in place, so they self-feed year to year. Kip is going around smelling everything. And then they get large enough to fully cover, and they do reseed, they do naturalize, and that's exactly what I wanted for here. I want them to just kind of meld into each other and really take over the whole area. As we work down here, you're gonna see that this is now the start of where I extended this pathway last year. So up until last year, the pathway stopped right here at the edge of these Niagara arborvitae. That's the row of arborvitae back here. And just last year, I had the path extended, and then I planted around, I think it was 300 or 400 more perennials. So all these perennials were put in just last year, and already you can see, this is what's great about perennials. They're catching up to about the same size. After a year, they're establishing to the same size. And I have a few spots in the back where I know I have room to put a few more. Today I just brought a little piece of Turkey rhubarb, which is an ornamental rhubarb from Mom's house that I took off of one of her plants. I want to put a split rail fence in here this year. A split rail, just 2 rails or 3 that you can still see perfectly through, so you can see this beautiful horizon and the sunset, but also offers a little space to what your eye kind of to stop and know the end of the yard. I think it's important in big yards like this to be able to kind of stop your eye and know where it ends. My whole goal with this yard, it's really been, I say this a lot, but it's been my classroom of learning what is a farmyard, because I grew up in a farmyard and my mom was always kind of changing the garden. She was always adding plants. It was very cottage style. And I've kind of been evolving and changing what that means. And I've really been enjoying what I add. I love architectural pieces like agave. This is a blue agave that I have that has perfect form. And I love it in this pot out here just to kind of add that beautiful, almost sculptural element to all these perennials that are going to be a sea of color soon. They're going to be purple and yellow and white and kind of a deep magenta. So all of this is going to be an array, and then that is just going to offer kind of this big juxtaposition in the back, which I really enjoy. As we work our way down, you're gonna start noticing now all the new trees I put in. So I have a video up of these 18 Emerald City tulip trees that I put in. So these are a cross with a traditional tulip tree and American sycamore. Obviously, they would be a little too big, planting 18 of them like this, but I am planning on pleaching them or keeping them clipped and hedged into like more of a shape and a form. So this is gonna become a very intimate garden space, and that's what I'm really excited about. So right in here is where I'm hoping to put a table. So a table and chairs eventually. I put a little piece of architectural salvage there that you can see is just a fragment of like an old ship sculpture from a building. And this whole space eventually, when these trees grow in, they're gonna offer some more shade here, especially in the evenings. And it's gonna really feel like a small kind of private room. And that's exactly what I wanted. That to me is like so exciting. This is a vision that I've had for a long time. It's exciting to me to break up a yard when it feels like it's expansive at first. You know, when I moved in 2010, I wasn't sure what I was gonna do. And slowly over time, it's changed, it's evolved, but now it's really feeling like I'm understanding a little bit. So this pathway also now extends right into my, what I call fire pit area. I've been setting benches around. I want to paint this one, but I definitely want to have a bench here, and it has a matching bench right there that is painted the part green. So I think I might even mirror them eventually, we'll see. But this leads up to my fire pit area where I also put my figs, my bay plants. I have all my herbs here that I have not planted yet, by the way, if you want to know. They are all just sitting right here. So I have lots. I think last year I planted all my herbs in the garden. This year I think I'm gonna plant them in containers right here where my mint goes and where there's rosemary. I had this rosemary topiary and I just clipped it from, it's 2 or 3 years old or more, and it just looked a little hard over the winter. So I clipped it back, and we're gonna see how it does. But all around here, all this area is my now kind of final formal area of boxwood. I've decided to kind of keep this to be my formal clipped hedge of boxwood. I have a little bit up by the house too. I used to have quadrants all around this of those too, but you know, boxwood, they take a lot of water sometimes in the middle of summer. They can take a little bit more care. We worry about box blight. So I'm gonna keep it to this area. I think for me, that's one of my things, you know, I've learned. When I first moved in, I did lots of boxwood hedging and tried to be really formal. What I've learned is that takes a lot more upkeep too, right? And it doesn't always work best with the climate here in Iowa. So that's why I've been adding in a lot more of the perennials you see along the edges here that are drought tolerant, that are pollinator friendly. And so I've slowly been evolving what some of my thoughts are in gardening to be more things that can take care of themselves, but also be really good for the environment and really just kind of offer a lot of beauty. So what I always called is chaos within controlled lines. So I have my chaos of all the perennials that can grow into each other, but they're controlled with that pathway that really offers that clean edge. And then right here off this patio of the kind of fire pit area, I love this armillary. I've had this for years. I put together it's a concrete base that I got at a garage sale for like $1 or $2. I'm not joking. And then I put the armillary on top, which I really love. But behind here is that table, big piece of granite with some architectural salvage kind of legs. But this is all the different agave and aloe that I kind of like to either propagate, or there's specialty ones I've been given, ones I've picked up on travels, you know, different things like that. Along with, it looks like one of Kip's Frisbees that probably when I was mowing I wanted to have out of there. And then this bed around it has some hydrangea. It has the Bar Harbor series Seaside Serenade. They do really well in full sun for me. And then it has, of course, some summer blooming allium, which take care of themselves, are very drought tolerant. More Caradonna salvia, meadow sages are in here. You know, the whole area just really is kind of one of those really pretty areas. But where I want to walk to, you kind of see my shadow and how late the sun is getting, is this big bed along the back of the shed. So this is now finally starting to really fill in and take a little bit more shape of something I'm really loving. So we are right before peony season right now. So you can see all the growth on the peonies, and right now what's blooming are the Geum, Geum. I love the little flowers. They're dainty. That might be called Tequila Sunrise. I don't remember which one that is. But they are such a pretty little flower. There's lots of spring allium that will be in here too. And then I have some different varieties of fern leaf peonies. So they're just about done. They're always a very early bloomer. These are all from my great grandma. I took different plants and I split them up. Mom has some, I have some, and then from my grandma. So I have all different varieties of fern leaf peonies, and then behind them are Ito peonies and herbaceous peonies and some tree peonies. I love the different mixture of peonies you can have. You know, there's different reasons to have different peonies. Herbaceous peonies are the traditional ones that we all know and love. So you can see like right here, this is a traditional garden peony. It gets really big, almost like a shrub. It has tons of blooms. If you want each bloom to be as big as it can be, you can snip off these little blooms below it. I don't like to do that. I just like to let it bloom. But these are beautiful. They can flop over depending on their variety. What's wonderful is then there's Ito peonies, which are a cross between a tree peony and an herbaceous peony. So they have a little bit more of a sturdy stem. They never flop over. They have bigger blooms, which is really nice. And then what's really nice is they have the most beautiful colors. For those of you that may have followed other years, you may remember that a few years ago, I really kind of dissected this bed and I started doing some groupings of plants in like 5 so they would show up a little bit more because they seem to get lost. So there's betony. I love humula betony. That hasn't obviously bloomed yet. It will a little bit later. And there's millennium allium. Those are kind of in repeating groups of 5. Like I said, there's lots of different peonies. This is again another fern leaf that's getting over. There's Caradonna salvia, but then kind of all along the front edge, I have a lot of my hardy geranium. So I think Biacovo is maybe the name of that one. It has a beautiful small white flower with kind of a purplish pink center. And then Roseanne, which we're more used to. There's some of that mixed in, but all along the front, I'm trying to honestly, what I always do is fill in so there is no soil showing because that means less weeds. The less soil we have showing, the less weeds there are. So I want my beds to be as full as they can be. There's Green Mountain Boxwood behind here. They've gotten some nice size to them. And then there's these big 2 sets of climbing roses here. And they're above and beyond, they're called. And you have to train a climbing rose. It doesn't necessarily cling on its own, but I've trained these and I keep them very pruned. Every year I prune them way back and they do so well. But you can see right here is an Ito peony again. Look at all the blooms that are on it. This is a yellow Ito peony, Bartzella, I believe it's called. And it gets these big, beautiful yellow blooms all over it. So this bed really soon is just gonna be highlighted with color, and I will make sure to do a video so you can see the whole thing because it's really one of my favorites. Now we're making our way to the vegetable garden, which is not fully planted yet. We are still, like I said, I'm filming this here in like the first week of May, and it's gonna go up a little later, but that means generally, I used to always say I don't plant certain things until Mother's Day, like our warm season things, tomatoes, peppers. This year I definitely could have planted them earlier, but it doesn't matter, they're gonna catch up. These 2 beds down here stay somewhat the same. So we have a big bed of rhubarb. And by the way, the rhubarb this year is glorious. I add compost to it usually yearly, but it has, I think measured 1 stalk the other day that was almost 3 foot. So it's doing really well. I have some leeks planted here. What I did this year was some of my soft neck garlic did not do too well over the winter, one of the first years that happened. So I planted some in the spring. I wanna see how it does. I know some people do spring garlic. It usually takes a little bit longer to harvest, but we're gonna find out. Then I have my hard neck garlic, of course, beyond that. It's looking great. We have some shallots over here. These are the French gray variety. I really love shallots. And then perennial onion, which spring onion, also called walking onion. One of my favorites because you can pull it out and use it like a green onion. And then lots of asparagus. And I have a lot to pick right now. You can see all that asparagus I need to pick. It has been profuse this year. Beyond, these 4 beds you see rotate every year. So I have tomatoes and peppers yet to plant. But what I have here right now are all my lettuces. You can see how beautiful, do you see all the beautiful lettuce? Really, I put this up in here. I can lift this for you. Look how gorgeous they look underneath here. I put this up so when I push mow this area, I don't want the grass to blow into the lettuce because it's really hard to clean out. So I just keep them covered. And then there's radish, spinach, arugula, carrots I have covered right now with burlap because they need extra help to germinate. And then behind me is all the brassicas. So I took my little jugs off that I keep for greenhouses. They're not needed anymore. And I'll remove those jugs now. And I will cover this also with a net. And this is purely for insects. So they don't need to pollinate. They're cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower. So I will have a big net over all of this, just like this hooped one. And that's gonna keep, so I don't have to do anything to them. Completely organic and really easy care because the rain and light still gets through them. So all these will be getting really big. And then soon enough, I will be planting my tomatoes here. And my peppers there, I will put a fresh layer of compost, maybe some raised bed mix on there. It just kind of depends on how full it is. Like this one's pretty full, so maybe just a little bit of compost. This one has sunk a little bit, so some raised bed mix probably. and I have not planted any of my flowers yet. So I always do some cut flowers in this little bed beyond the garden. But I did put in my 2 pencil cactus out here, and they're huge and beautiful. That is a early spring, very early spring, garden tour. Oh, I see a weed. I always, if I'm walking and I see a weed, I pick it. I don't let it go. That's how it looks right now. Oh, by the way, I'm walking on the little bit of path that's left after my vegetable garden. That's the back entrance to my vegetable garden. Another Northwind maple there. I love the color they have. They just are highlighted throughout the yard, and I can always see them. This is what it looks like right now. And honestly, it's been exciting for me this year because I feel like I'm finally starting to see a payoff of some of the things I've planted and been waiting on. Because the thing is, you know, there's another weed. Year to year, we don't always see the changes, right? But this is one of those years where I'm starting to notice, like, I wasn't paying attention. All of a sudden, look what grew. And that's just really exciting to me. So I'm really starting to notice that. So I hope I can hear about your gardens too, what's working for you, what you're planting, what you're excited about, what maybe changes you're finally noticing too, because if you're like me, that patience is really hard. So I hope you're noticing some exciting things. And I will be doing more garden tours, both at Mom's house and here as the season progresses. So you can see the peonies blooming, the allium blooming, everything as it comes into play, because I think part of what's fun about gardening and sharing it with you is seeing how it progresses throughout the year. That's what we want to know. How's it gonna look later on, right? So that's what I'll make sure to show you. So happy gardening, friends. As always, I hope you subscribe to the channel if you enjoy it. I hope you share this video if you really enjoyed it, and leave me a comment and let me know. Thanks so much.